This is Amy Chenard, and I'll be giving a demonstration on how to create ad hoc views, which we will then use to create reports and a dashboard using Jaspersoft. Now with Jaspersoft, we're able to explore and analyze data through an easy-to-use drag-and-drop web user interface. Here I'm logged into Jaspersoft, and we're looking at the landing page. At the top, there are some menu items. On the left, we see links to educational content and recently viewed items, and in the right are links to common tasks. Let's start by looking at some existing reports in the repository. We do this by selecting Library from the top menu bar. Now here is a pared-down repository page that contains ad hoc views, reports, and dashboards to which the logged-in user has rights. In this case, I'm logged in as a super user, so I see everything. In the list are some of the out-of-the-box reports, which is the content we deliver with CABI 6.2. These were built using Jaspersoft Studio, which is the desktop-based report designer used to create highly formatted reports and filter features. It's something an advanced report administrator might use, and we ship a license for this with CABI. Let's take a look at one of these reports. Active incident aging. If I right-click on this report in the list, I have some options available to me. Aside from running it, I can export this, and I can set up a schedule. By setting a schedule, we can run this now, or I can actually create a reoccurring schedule by clicking Create Schedule. The reoccurrence can be simple, such as every day or week, or I can do it based on specific days, or a calendar-based reoccurrence. If this report has parameters, maybe there's an assignment parameter, you would set it on the Parameters tab. The Output tab shows us formats available for this report, and also where you define where to output it to an FTP server or other destination. And our Notifications tab will specify whether we want this report included in the report body or as an attachment to that email. I'm going to hit Cancel and back, and let's actually run that report. We can do that by selecting Active Incident Aging. Now this report has two charts on the main page. These are interactive charts with various elements, such as filter items and charts and tables. If I move my mouse over a pie chart, over the pieces of the pie, I see the data relevant to that pie piece. I can remove data from that chart by clicking on it, or by re-adding it by clicking over the legend item. There's a little gears icon on these, and by selecting chart types, I can actually change the design of the chart with this little palette. And when I'm done selecting what I like my chart to look like, I just close the palette. There's pages to this report. So let's scroll to the second page, and we see an example of a crosstab based on priority and time. The third page shows us a list example where this includes the incidents in this report with more details on them. There's also a hyperlink that will lead us directly into Service Desk Manager. If I select the hyperlink, I get presented with the login page, and if I have rights to see the data, the incident detail page will come up. I'm going to close this now, go back to the home page, and let's create our first ad hoc view. To do this, we select Create under Ad hoc Views. Now, reports in Jaspersoft are based on ad hoc views, so this is our first step. Ad hoc views rely on domains to access Jaspersoft's metadata layer. Domains can include some or all of the database tables, and they provide us a business view of the data accessed. I have some sample domains here, and if I select one, this bottom one here is for incidents, requests, and problems, and choose data, I see the source. At this point, I actually can select certain fields by double-clicking them or using the arrows to move them over. And these are the fields that we can use to create our report. Or we can double-click on the top level and add the entire table. Other things we can do at this stage are create filters. So if we're adding certain assignees as filters, we can sort of hard code them into our view here. We can change the name of fields if we don't like the way they're displayed. So I'm going to change active flag to is active. And I can additionally save this as a topic that I can use for later. So now I'm presented with the new ad hoc view window. On the left, I see all the fields and measures available to me per the domain setup. In the middle is the report designer, and on the far right, which is minimized, is the filter area. Now at the top are the fields. At the bottom are things called measures, and measures typically contain numeric data that can be aggregated in a crosstab fashion. We see things like time since, resolve time, and time to close. So what we'll do is create a report, a table report, that shows the time to close in days for our tickets. The first thing we need to do on the menu bar is to set the chart type to table. Now all we need to do is drag and drop our fields. So if we start by selecting assignee, the column and some sample data, if you look at the top right, you'll see sample data selected here. And this will give me the first 15 rows of data so that I can get an idea what my report will look like without actually having to call the entire database. And I can drag this column over to make it a little wider. I'll also grab things like category. I can double click on it. I can multi-select if I wanted to. I can drag things over. I can also move them in the column area so I can rearrange how they look in the order that they're in. Priority, status, ticket number, I'll put it at the front, and also I need a measure, and I'm going to grab time to close in days. Now for group here, I see I've got application support group, and then I've got some unassigned groups. Instead of having it listed, I can take the column item and drag it into the group's line, and now all my tickets will be grouped by that field, which is group. We can also set some sorting order so that if I use this column for my initial sorting, I can set this as a descending from highest to lowest so that I see which tickets take the longest to close. Now under status, I see I've got things called statuses like acknowledged and in process and open. So I'm going to go over to my fields, take status, and drag it over to my filters. And I could actually create a filter based on status. And I can also remove it here. Because what might make more sense is to remove all tickets that are active. So is active is a better filter for me to use. And if I select from the drop-down, I have some pre-built options. So I want is active equals 0. And if I click on apply, that'll remove all those active statuses. I can also add maybe assignee. So if assignees are null, I would like to not include them. So I can right-click on the field and create a filter, as well as dragging it over. And I'll do the same for group by right-clicking and adding it as a filter. And then under my assignee, I can say is not equal to null. And the same thing with this one, is not equal to null. And hitting apply will apply the filter. There's also the option of creating custom filter expressions. So if I wanted a combination of things, so if it's maybe is active, so I could say A and B or C. I can do a combination of custom filter expressions. Now if I click here, I can add a title. And this little gears button will let us add some totals. Now we can add totals across for all the columns, or if I right-click on them, I can do it just for one. So if I add a summary here, you'll see I have a total of 15, which means there's 15 records in here. Now depending on the type of data in the column, for example, this is our measure, if I add a summary here, it's going to actually sum up the data instead of count it. And if I do it at the details and totals level under the gears icon, it'll give me the default totals for all my columns. Additionally, if I just want to see the totals, now I have a list of the groups assigned with what their totals would be. So I'm going to set that back to details and totals. And we are ready to save our report. We do that by mousing over the Save icon and Save Adhoc View and Create Report. Now, Jaspersoft has a folder structure to make it easier to organize content. These folders are also based on your security access. The default service management folder you can see here is what we provide with the content delivered. I'm going to name this first table view, and this is our first table report. By clicking Save, we've now saved this as a view and as a report. And we can take a look at that report and add some formatting to it by going to the home screen, and under Reports, we can view the list. Now there are some filters here, and if I select Today, I'll see anything I might have created today. So here's my first table report. If I click on this, we have it running. And now we can add some formatting. To do that, I'll select the column. So what I'd like to do is add some formatting to the priority column so that when I see critical incidents in the list, they're highlighted. If I click the column options, select formatting, and here I have some basic formatting that can be applied at 3 levels, or more if I have totals in this case. So I can modify the header, which is the word priority here. I can make the font a little bigger, underline it, maybe center it. I can modify the group by field, which we set as group. And for that, I'll change the color of the background to highlight the separation in data. Maybe I'll change the font as well. And then under the Conditional Formatting tab here is where we can set up some conditions for the data that's listed under the priority column. If I add an operator and it equals 1- critical, then let's color the background of that a red to make it stand out. I can do additional operators if I wanted to highlight the medium or a different priority as well, but clicking OK will apply this to my column. So now I've modified the title, the label here, conditional formatting at the row level, and then we've broken out the grouping here. And we can save this report by hovering over the Save icon and selecting Save. So now let's go back and create a simple crosstab report. And then we're going to put all of these together into a dashboard. So we'll start by clicking the Home button. And again, we need to create an ad hoc view. Now this time, because we had created a shortcut to the the view, the domain we did earlier, we can select it from the list. So I had created my domain, and I'll just click OK. And now we don't actually have to pull over the fields again. Now, crosstabs are selected by default here, and all I need to do is grab the fields I want. So I will do a crosstab report based on priority, ticket type, and ticket count. The first field I want is priority. I'll grab it and drag it as a column, and you can see the crosstab is already setting itself up. The next thing is ticket type, and I'll add that as a row. And then I need a measure. So we'll do ticket count. Let's give this a title. And now let's add a filter. Let's add a date filter. For open date, I will create a filter. And here, I want this filter to be on or after something. So I have some options. I can create a fixed timestamp, which is setting it as a particular day and time, or a relative timestamp. So if I would like this report to only show me tickets going back a year or two, I set the number of years. I set my adjustment to -2, and then I set my time period here, which is years. I apply my filter, my data changes, and now I can save this. So I hover over the Save icon and select Save Ad Hoc View and Create Report. And this will be our second report, second crosstab. And I'll give it a report name. I'll save it to the Service Management folder again under Users and click Save. So now that we have a crosstab report, it's really easy to update this to a chart. We do that by simply selecting Chart from the dropdown. Now the chart visualizer, which is over here on the right side, lets us zoom through various levels of the data in this chart. So we can move the data level bars back and forth to watch the report presentation change. For example, for columns, I'm setting it's set on priority. So if I move my data level bar to the right, I've now broken out my report based on priority. And if I hover over these, I can see red is for medium, and I have a ticket count. I can do the same thing with the rows. If I move my data level bar over to the right, I break it out by ticket type. So now I have I for incident, P for problem, R for request, broken out by priority. And at this level, we can do some formatting. By hovering over the gears, not only can we change the chart types as we did before, we can change some formatting. We can add, by selecting chart format, we can do things like changing the rotation of the x-axis labels. So right now we see that it goes at a 45-degree angle where it says ticket count. And if I need to save some space on my report, I can change that to 0, hit apply, and it goes down to just a flat horizontal. For the labels, I can control where my legend is. So the legend position, maybe I want to move it to the right side, or maybe it's really big. I don't actually need it on my report. Hitting apply will move the legend. And under the Advanced tab, we can set some advanced options to format this report. Now, this will bring us to the Jaspersoft community page. And on this page, they've documented a bunch of properties and the values. So for example, chart background color, if you specify the hexadecimal color, the hex code, or the actual color in quotes, you can change the background of your report. So I'll copy that. I'll click on Add Property, paste it in here, and add light blue. So you can match the theme of your company's coloring here, and hitting apply will add that property. Another one is to alternate the grid color on the axis bar. So if I add another property, and hit apply, now I've got a different look for my report. Let's go ahead and save this and create our report. I'm going to click Save As, since this is based on our crosstab. Now this is our third chart. And I'll hit Save. So now we have some ad hoc views and reports to use in our dashboard. To create a dashboard, click on the Home link, and under Dashboards, select Create. Now, Jaspersoft Report Server allows users to quickly create dashboards containing multiple reports from the repository along with external content. Here you can see the reports that we had created earlier, and there's also the out-of-the-box reports available to us. If I click and drag this over, you'll see that it uses the entire space available. When I grab my second report, I have a visual cue to show where the dashlet will be placed. And this helps me understand how I want this report to look. And I'll do the same for the third. I'll just drag it over, and when I like where it is, I can drop it. I can also manually drag and drop the report locations. And there's content here under Available Content. I can create a new chart, crosstab, or table on the fly, and it'll actually bring me back into the interface we were using. I can drag over some text to say I need a title here. And then double-clicking on it will give me the format. I can make this text a little bigger and give it a color. I can also add external web pages. So if I grab this web page and I drop it here, I can enter the URL of something that I might need my users to access often by just pasting in an address and clicking OK. Now I have a web interface here. So if I want to see what that looks like, because right now it looks a little small, and this one too might be a little hard to read, but if I toggle between display and design mode, this is what my dashboard would actually look like to the end users. And there's a little maximize button, and if I click this, it gives me a bigger view of what's going on. And I just minimize it, and the same thing with the web page. I can maximize the web page. I can click around, get the information I need, close it back up, and now go back into the toggle view. One other thing we can do, if we right-click on one of these dashlets and select Properties, we can set a refresh rate. So under Refresh Settings, I'm selecting Auto Refresh Dashlet Contents. You can set it to minutes or seconds and apply. The final thing we do is we save our dashboard. And I'll put it under the Service Management folder under Users. Select Save. And now when I go to my home window, now that we have a dashboard, I can view the list. I can right-click on it and run it in a new tab. And once it's in this tab, I have the URL to where this dashboard is, and I can keep it separate and run it on a second monitor if I need to. And that is the end of the demo. Thank you.